want to welcome you once again if you just joined the webinar. My name is Nina Sanders, and I'm so excited you're joining us here today for Jade Global's webinar on how Oracle EPBCS, one of the hottest EPM products in the market right now, can align your operational and financial planning processes. And before we get started, because all of you signed up for this webinar, we want to offer you a great deal on a discounted health check. This offer is exclusively for today's webinar attendees, and we're offering this just for staying until the end, and it's only available today. It's a 50% discounted health check assessment where Jade Global will assess your current system, go through the requirements review, look at a fit gap analysis, and also assess whatever your current system is to determine which system is best fit for your business. And at the end of the webinar, we'll show you how to claim this offer. For legal purposes, this is our safe harbor statement. We ask that you acknowledge the following content in this webinar is for information purposes only. A bit about Jade Global and who we are. We provide enterprise business application implementations both on cloud and on-prem, advisory, managed services, testing, integration, and consulting. Our main offices are headquartered in San Jose, California, and we also have an East Coast headquarters just outside of Philadelphia. Our customers are made up of diverse industries, including services, high tech, and manufacturing. A bit about our speaker today. Sriram Sharma is Jade Global's Senior Solution Architect for our Analytics and Information Management practice here at Jade Global. He's an Oracle Certified Implementation Specialist with over 15 years of experience in technical configuration, design, analysis, delivery, and development for various projects, including Oracle Planning, Oracle EPBCS, and Oracle FCCS. Sriram holds a master's degree in electrical engineering, and a few fun facts about him are he enjoys riding his bike in his free time and gardening. And now I will hand it off to my esteemed colleague Sriram, who will walk you through the agenda and the rest of the presentation.
Hello everyone, welcome you to this webinar. So today's agenda that we will be going through is some facts about Jade Global, as well as some details about AIM practice. Then we right away jump into EPBCS and see what are the out-of-box capabilities that comes with this environment. And then we will have a look to how to build EPBCS environment and what is the difference between a traditional on-premise environment build up to EPBCS. We will look at different business processes that are available on EPBCS, as well as design considerations and what we get out of EPBCS, and then we will finally open the floor for Q&A. So this is some fact about analytics and information management practice at Jade Global, that we are Oracle specialized platinum partner, not only on application industry as well as on infrastructure side, but also on various different products, and you can see variety of specialized certifications that we have from Oracle. These are some of our industry experience that we have, ranging from manufacturing, media and software to high tech, as well as retail, higher education, services, and finance industries. So this, some of them where you see the cloud, these are our cloud partners on the system, whereas others are on-prem environments. Now, right away, let's jump into analyticals, information and management core pillars that our practice focus on. So we currently focus on EPM, BI, big data, as well as overlayer of data integration. On the EPM side, we focus on your HSF, that's your Hyperion Strategic Finance, budgeting and forecasting, that includes your PBCS, EPBCS, as well as your on-prem planning plus, financial consolidation, as well as financial operations, that includes your FCCS and HFM. Similarly, on the BI side, we focus on predictive analytics, business alerts, more on your OBIE, OBIA, as well as your BICS and OACS. We do have practice on big data like Hadoop, as well as your data-driven integrations, as well as management like your DRM systems, that's your data relationship management, as well as your MDM systems. And then we focus on specific on data integration, where we as a Jade created our own tool called your Infra to ODI, basically to migrate your Informatica mappings to ODI for OBIA 11 as well as 12c versions. That's a patent product from Jade Labs that we have developed out. Now let's start on the trend that we see as a Jade in the market. So if you look around, the top 5 reasons that we have found that people are moving to the cloud are basically they want to avoid heavy on infrastructure, they want to avoid on-premise upgrades, they want to get a functionality to have mobile, iOS, iPad capabilities, have a shared service model, they can globally expand that environment, decrease the utilize of spreadsheets by different products. If you see, so you see FP&A, that's your financial planning and budgeting, has mostly reduced the utilization of spreadsheet with EPM Cloud. If you look by leading EPM practice, your driver-based planning and budgeting is the highest where people want to focus out. As well as if you see the benefits that people have got from the cloud is basically they are staying on up to date with the technology. So there is no need to upgrade their current infrastructure or environment. That basically goes on the service provider who is going to do that. Now let's look at some of the out-of-box capabilities that EPBCS offers. So if you look at the architecture that is offered from EPBCS side, so you have a pre-built module available for finance, a module available for strategic modeling, projects, CapEx, as well as your workforce. So these are 5 pre-built out-of-box industry best practice modules that you get with EPBCS. Apart from that, on the platform, if you see, you are getting 3 BSO, 3 ASO, as well as 1 reporting. Apart from all these 5 pre-built modules, you are getting multi-currency conversion capabilities, you are getting rolling forecast, as well as you get a capability of running sandboxing on any of this pre-built module that is available. And one by one, we'll be looking into each pre-built module, what is the capability that you get out of this. Now let's quickly look around what is the traditional approach that we, not Jade also, but all other IT firms have been taking around when they do an implementation of your on-prem planning. So for example, earlier people used to start with a big bang approach where they goes with a requirement session that will run around 3 to 4 months for an on-prem environment, 3 to 4 weeks. And then based on that requirement, they used to come up with a blueprint document, a planning matrix, as well as a design document that how they want to get that application going on. Once that design document has been approved, they start the implementation process where they will basically sit down into one corner and build the environment. Once that is built, they will perform various UATs, smoke tests, integration tests, verification tests on the system, and then finally deploy it out and provide support. So that's a kind of methodology that people have been following around to implement your traditional EPM products. Similarly, if you look what I explained on a Hyperion planning architecture, you can see that firstly we create a basic planning structure in number 1, then load all your metadata dimensions, create user defined elements, set up the exchange rate, load, calculate data, set up the planning security, modify your forms, annotations, business rules, and then finally have your task list management. So that's a kind of a traditional approach for your planning process also. But with this new EPBCS environment, this entire traditional methodology is kind of scrapped out, and we move to more on kind of an agile methodology. So if you look at your out of box EPM implementation approach, this is more on kind of agile methodology where you start doing a small portion requirement, you do a high level design for that, then you configure that design out into the system. After that, detailed out whatever the things are needed for that, go with your any kind of out of box extended configuration or customization that you need. You release that out and move to the phase 2, which is again moving to requirement phase where you gather further requirements. So that's a kind of a cycle approach, I would say, that we take with out of box EPM implementations. So now, how this incremental build-up approach helps your out-of-box EPBCS implementations? Let's have a look to that. So, if you see, basically you scope out what exactly is needed on EPBCS. So, as I mentioned, there are different modules available. For example, your finance, workforce, capex, your projects, strategic modeling. What are the modules that are needed? You scope that modules out. You do a pre-configuration. So pre-configuration is nothing. It's just enabling the products on the system. Once you enable the product, then you move to the cycle that we talk about it, where you have out-of-box content, you upload the dimensions, you do your extended configurations, enable, do verifications, and then follow the business process area that we'll be looking in the upcoming slides. What are the areas each module focuses on? Now, this is more kind of a detailed explanation about your incremental approach. So first of all, as I mentioned, that your out of box content as well as your extended configuration, you do it. Then you move to the left hand of the house where you look at the configurations of your business process and features. Over here, basically, you see what are the different business process that needs to be enabled on different modules, as well as what are different features out of these modules you want to get. So that is the left hand side of the house, you enable it. Then you move to the customization portion where you either do a fully custom module development or do a custom integration with the system, where you have a direct integration either with ERP cloud as well as different Oracle cloud products, or use a hybrid approach where you might use a FDME on-premise to do an integration, or EPM automate to perform integration with different business processes. So,
thanks, Sri. Before we get into the second half of the presentation, we are going to ask 2 poll questions, which you'll see pop up on your screen, and we'll give you a couple of seconds to respond. So the question is, what challenges are you currently facing in your planning, budgeting, and forecasting processes? And it looks like we have 67% of attendees saying complex FP&A processes, and 30% of our attendees are saying prone to errors. All right, we'll close this poll. And the second question will pop up now. All right, and this question is asking what you're currently using now for your planning, budgeting, and forecasting. We have about 70% are using an Oracle planning tool, and the remaining are using Excel. Closing this poll.
Okay, thanks Nina for that. So let's look at different business processes that are involved in your EPBCS. So as module by module, if you look financials, so your financial is basically configured with two different types of model. That is either a product based industry or a service based industry. So this application can be configured either to work on a product based scenario or a service based scenario. So that goes on your vertical, industry vertical, which area you are kind of focusing on. Then you can select that you want to have a train based or a driver based or just a plain vanilla input system for planning. You can choose what kind of financial systems you need, what kind of cash flows you need. Do you need a direct cash flow, a indirect cash flow, or you need a mix up of both? And what kind of integrations you want with other business processes. Similarly, on the workforce side, you can enable employee expenses, which includes your earning, taxes, and benefits. You can do strategic workforce, right at to the personal, right time, right cost. You can do demographics where you can collect various other informations, and then finally you can integrate the system with various other business processes. So example, your workforce can be integrated to your finance. That means all my labor related costs will automatically flow into my finance cube. Similarly, you have a cube for CapEx, which has your existing as well as new assets. It can deal with assets and leases. It can deal with existing asset transfers, improvements, retirements. How do you retire your assets into the system, as well as the integration with other modules. That means data flowing from your capital to your financials. Finally, your projects. So projects over here focuses on three main types of projects, that are your contract, indirect, as well as your capex. It deals with revenue and expenses for a project. It has all the project benefit requirements, integration with finance, as well as integration of your workforce and capex with projects. So that kind of internal integration as well as third party integrations are supported in various different business processes. And for each business process, that is your financial, workforce, capex, and projects, we will be going much deeper into it, what they offer and what we look out of it. So now let's look at your project business scenario. So this is more and kind of focusing on how project scenario is configured. So when we configure your EPBCS application, it depends that how you want to set up your projects. If you are setting up just your contract, that is your revenue as well as your indirect projects, then you don't need to enable your capex module. But if I'm setting up a capital expenditure kind of projects also, then I set up a capex module first. That's why you see type of projects, what kind of projects reporting I need. Based on that, I need various dimensions that I add into the system, do integrations, and then enable the product accordingly. On the left hand side, if you see that what are the out of box capabilities for each module you are getting. So on project types, as I mentioned, that I get three separate types of projects, that are your contract, capital, and internal, or your indirect. Whereas on the reporting side, I get project summary, I get expenses, revenue, as well as analysis. And we will be going into each of this in detail in demo. Similarly, if I look at the workforce, as my workforce is more focused on employees, so I basically have the application created either by employees or by job, or I can combine employee and job together. What kind of expenses I'm going to capture? I'm going to capture labor related expenses or non-labor related expenses in this application. I can add that out. Then I can capture other details related to gender, demographics, details of the employee, that basically deploys the additional cube into the system. So you can see the out of box capabilities for this are employees and or job, linkage, type of expenses that are managed, workforce management, strategic workforce. So you can run a iteration based model on workforce, saying that if I have a 10% iteration of workforce, what is the impact that is going to happen in 6 or 7 months. You can run various scenarios or what if analysis on the system where you do a transfer of employees and what happens with that. The dimensions that it supports out are your account, component, property, union code, as well as 3 flex dimensions which you can set it up into the system. Similarly, if I look at my capital business process, as I mentioned that it deals with your asset management and different assets, leases and their types. So it has various different kind of amortization as well as depreciation schedules or calculations created in the system, that what is the lifespan of a product or an asset, how it is going to be terminated, if how the product, if there is any left amount for that product or for that asset, how I'm going to handle it out, as well as integrations with your financials, it impact analysis with your balance sheet as well as cash flow. So asset has the biggest impact on your balance sheet and cash flow. Similarly, if you look at your finance, as I mentioned earlier, that it serves out 2 models, product and service. It is based on trend based or driver based, integration with other business processes. It can support multiple chart of accounts, has a has a rapid implementation, as well as add-on extended capabilities. So that's what we get from financial business process. Now let's look at some of the design considerations before even going to the demo. So what are the things that you need to keep in mind when these applications are kind of implemented? So first of all, you need to see there. If I look at the design considerations, I divide it into various different categories. So the first category is a journal category, where a journal process setup for all different modules is done. So you set up the application, you set up what kind of applications you need. Your application is going to follow your fiscal year or a calendar year. Do you want currency conversions? How is the navigation flow going to set up? What kind of data integrations you need in the system? So that is a general setup that you do. Then module by module you do it. So if I want to start, let's say I'm going with implementing all 4 modules, then the process is that I first set up a financial module where I set what kind of module I need. Do I need a product based industry, or I need a service based industry, or a totally custom industry? How I'm going to budget and forecast out. I am going to use a driver based system, or I am going to use a trend based system, or it's going to be a direct planning based system that I'm going to set up, or it's going to be a totally customized planning that I'm going to use. And plan element, this is basically a predefined dimension in your financial module, where you can use this as a data stage. So basically, what kind of data type or from where the data is coming up, this plan element will hold that details. That's why it's more important to set this dimension out correctly. If you look at the workforce, you need to set at the starting how you need to set up your employees. Do you want to set the application by employee only, or by job, or by both? How your strategic workforce is going to set up? What are different sets of assumptions, data integrations, as well as integration with different modules? So for example, projects and financials. So you need to set workforce as a second. Third is your capex. If you are going with capital projects, then you need to set up your capex first. Similarly, on the project side, where you are setting up projects, so now what kind of projects you are dealing with? Are your projects just labor based, or material based, or equipment based? Depending on what kind of details you are setting up while creating this application, the application will be configured accordingly. And then finally, how do you want to report out system? So my personal experience is always do a BSO planning and ASO reporting, as well as try to use most of out-of-box reporting that is available with EPBCS. The final approach is, how do you want to integrate the system? So if you are having any kind of on-premise system and you want to have a direct integration, then you can go with a hybrid approach, where you can have on-premise FDME 11.121.100 or higher version directly integrating to the cloud, or you can use a cloud approach where you can use data management on the cloud for a manual integration, or a direct integration with Oracle cloud products, or you can use the utility available from Oracle EPM Automate to automate the cloud product with various on-premise environments. Now, after this design considerations, we will go into the demo. So we will look up the demo environment. So if you see at the screen, this is basically how your EPBCS screen looks like. This is more on kind of your tile-based design where this product is more feasibly opening on your iOS, Android, as well as mobile devices. You have different modules that we talk about, the pre-built modules available. So you can see strategic modeling, you can see finance, projects, capital, workforce, as well as you can create your own custom design into it. You can see your announcements, what are there. So if I click on this, I can see all the announcements that are made by the company over here at one place. I can go to recents and see what are all the things that have been visited. I can open it up. It shows my nice picture, able to link with your Active Directory, your company logo and all. So now let's go one by one into each module and see what are the pre-built out-of-box capabilities that you are getting with this module. So as soon as I click on my finance tile, it basically opens up different cards for me. So you can see that it gives you a pre-built dashboard capability with your revenue, expense, balance sheet, cash flow, as well as for analysis. So let's start with my revenue portion of it. So as soon as I click on my revenue, and let me change my entity to US sales. So you can see that I have different tiles or cards available by revenue, by expense, balance sheet, cash flow. Over here I have horizontal tabs as well as I have vertical tabs, and this is all pre-built capabilities. As soon as you enable the system, this all is set up and it's customizable based on your need. So I can see the revenue forecast for year FY16 for sales US working in reporting currency USD. What was my total revenue, forecasted revenue for FY17? What is year over year change? I can see all that, cost of sales, total revenue, revenue trends, revenue categories, all that I can see. If I move to my income statement over here in the tab, I can see different income statements that are available directly. If I want, I can maximize some of the areas just to look and focus, see what is exactly is going on. I can come back on that. Now if I go to my next vertical tab, that is my driver base area, and if I look at different products and all, so give me a second. So if you look over here, these are different drivers that are available, as it's a product based industry that has been configured. You can select how the drivers is going to impact into the system. So I have a drop down available over here which basically gives me the capability to change the calculations on fly how the driver is going to impact. So for example, volume, I want to say that it's going to be prior year's actual average. That's the way how it has to uh, uh, add up on the trend basis, or it's a monthly growing. That way the calculation behind the scene changes out. You have increased assumptions, you have drillable capabilities where you can drill down and see what exactly is going on by months into the system. And all again, all these drivers are configured based. I can go, this is my driver based revenue planning. I can look at revenue trends also, where what is the trend of revenue. I can have a graphical representation. I can enlarge that graph and see what is happening by product for all this. And again, all these graphs are your customizable. I'm just showing the out of box capabilities that it comes from the system. I can look at my driver-based revenue planning, that with increase, what exactly is happening with each of the driver. I can do a direct planning also, where I can go into the system and input directly the details about products over here in the system. So if I go to my enter revenue tab, you can see that I can go ahead and input directly into the system. This is just my revenue planning. Similarly, I have my expense planning also, where I can input all details about expense and all. The best part over here is, based on my revenue and expense, my balance sheet is driven. So all my balance sheet is automatically calculated mostly out of my revenue and expense. That is from my income statement. Most of my balance sheet will be calculated. Still, I have areas available where I can do a impact on the balance sheet, where I can do a trended balance sheet, or I can do a planning out in the balance sheet. When I'm setting up the application, I need to define what kind of cash flow the application is going to support. So for example, if I'm saying an indirect cash flow or a direct cash flow, based on that, the different predefined calculations that are available on the cash flow are set up in the system, and you can see impacts of these cash flows accordingly on your based on your balance sheet and income statement. What are the impacts on cash flow? You can see, and you can see cash over cash, cash versus cash flow. What is the cash flow trend that you are seeing? What is the detail? What is flowing out on all? You can see all that, and this again is totally customizable based on your needs. So these are your predefined cards available. Then finally you have a card available called analysis, which is more on kind of your predefined out of box reporting that is available. So you have a dashboard report over here, as well as you have various different reports that are pre-built from the system available, and they are built in such a way that as soon as the hierarchy is set up in the system, this report start working. You don't even need to make modifications to it. So that's the power of finance module that you get. Don't forget, this module is again linked to your workforce capex as well as your different project modules. So we had an example of your finance. Let's similarly look at a project module. If I click on my project, similarly I'm placed out with different tabs. I can go to a project summary module, where if I change up my entity, let me just change it to manufacturing and look at different products. So you can see that as soon as I have a right intersection, all my investments, ROI, benefit cost ratios, billable, non-worth, billable project, contract revenue breakdown, all that is automatically populated out based on the actual data that is flowing from my source system. I can go to a project detail module and see what are the different projects in that particular legal entity are going on. What is their start date, end date? What is the status of that project? How it's revenue recognized? And over here, the best part is I can have a standard rate coming from my Oracle projects or different project module, and I can define, do I need to override that project rate when I'm calculating my budget and forecast. So I can say yes or no accordingly, and then I can have additional columns attached to it. So for example, total contract revenue or obligation amount, I can add that details over here. I can go into my drivers and I can see drivers by standard rate. So as I mentioned earlier, that each project is configured by labor, by material, by equipment. So you can see various different rates that are available. You can define material rate by unit, by different areas. For example, per hour, per square feet, per foot, per pound, accordingly. Overhead rates, discount rates, standard rates for labor, you can define that out by jobs, and all these job titles are coming from your workforce. So the rates that are available from workforce, they are populated and accordingly. So this is more on kind of my project summary tab, and this tab will basically drive my expense and revenue. So if I go to my expense tab for this project, I can see where do I stand, what is going on with that. Now I can go to the assumption forms and I can look at different assumptions. I can make changes to it. So for example, let me change the project to contract based cost plus FMIT. So this is my expenses related to labor. So you can see that I can define what is the stage of the project, what is the job title that I'm using, what is the specified employee on that, what is the start date and end date of that employee on the project, how much FT that employee is going to be counted, which location it's going to work. The labor rates are coming from my your standard rates, and based on that it automatically calculates my labor related expenses. I have various different categories available in the drop downs, and again all these are totally customizable based on your need. It can be customized. You have material, similarly you can see the expenses related to material, you can add it up. You can add it up expenses related to equipment also into the system, and then finally if you have any other expenses you can add that up. This is a calculated process that has been shown, but if there are any kind of direct expenses that are happening to the company which are not recorded anywhere, you can record that into the system. You can basically go over here, add expenses, and that expenses will be spread out accordingly. So for example, if I want to add expenses, let's say for no stage, I want to add expenses for my, let's say, offsite labor expenses, and I can basically input any value at a year total level. The best part of it is it accepts that value and it spreads it back to months, quarters accordingly. So you can see it asks for me a rule to launch. I just launched that rule, and if I expand that out, so evenly it has spread that number back to my month. So that is the capability that you are getting with this system. Similarly, I have a revenue based card where I can see the revenue forecast. Again, my revenue on a project side is either generated by labor, by material, by equipment. So I can see what kind of labor it's going to generate. I can have a direct entry form for the labor where I can add direct entry for the labor into the system. And then finally I have an analysis tab where I can look what is the impact of projects on various KPIs that are available in the system. I can look at project profitability report as well as project rolling cash flow report. So based on that project, what is happening on my cash flow with all the projects going on in the company, as well as what is happening my project profitability. So over here in this projected revenue sheet, if you see, I can see each project, what is the start date, end date, status, and what is your ROI, what is the revenue that I am making, what is the investment on that. So I can look into that. I can look project cash flow, each cash flow what I'm making, as well as I can do a rolling forecast, or I have various directly created out of box reports also which I can run and check it out. So that was your projects tab. Similarly, I have a pre-built capex tab also available where you have details related to investments, existing assets, intangibles, and then finally your analysis. So investments are more on kind of your new assets that you are adding in the system or new leases that you are setting up. Existing assets is basically what is carried forward from your fixed asset module. So investments, you can see, okay, what are going on in the system, what is new asset details. So for example, if I look, try to open up the intersection and see what is going on. So for example, if I select a 518 and then try to look at a particular form, let's say project Diablo, and I want to say, let me select another, hold on, let me just refresh the page. So this is addition of your new assets into the system where I can see what kind of assets I'm going to add. So for example, over here I can see that I have CIP asset, that's your asset that has been budgeted but has not been approved. I can see machinery, EIP asset, what is the basic cost, acquisition cost in the system. I can go ahead and say I want to calculate the depreciation, or I want to calculate the amortization out of it. I can go for funding. I can look for asset related expenses in that. If I want to give a detailed justification about each asset, what is going on and why I need it, I can do a free form detailed justifications also on the asset over here. Similarly, I can add new leases in the system from here, where I can add new lease up into the system, and based on that new list that I'm adding up, things will be calculated out. So I need to fill out all these lease properties, and based on that, the lease amount will be calculated out. Similarly, I can go to my existing assets, which are basically your existing assets that are coming from the system. You can see you have owned versus leased asset pie chart, which basically gives you the detail. You see each existing asset expenses, what is the cash flow impact because of this assets, and what are the details. If you want to change or retire some of the assets, you can retire it from here, this screen. So the assets which are going to retire, you can select it out, and based on that, you can run various different rules where you can transfer an asset from one department to another department, as well as you can retire, you can calculate different assets accordingly. You can do this all were related to tangible capital investment. But now let's say your intangible investments, for example your goodwill and all, how does that impact your income statement as well as your cash flow? That also is taken care in this. As I mentioned earlier, this is a pre-built out of box best practice design that has been set up. So you have various tabs available for that. Similarly, you have tabs available for analyzing your capital expenditure. Last but not the least, we will look into your workforce also. What are the areas that are available on the workforce side? So workforce, you have compensation planning, other expenses, strategic workforce, demographics and analysis. If I go to compensation planning, I can go look into my compensation planning. So where I can see the existing employees which are available in the system. So for example, if I select my particular entity over here, sales, and if I select no projects, so you can see the existing employees which are, or the new hiring request that had been generated. You can see that, you can see your existing employees. You can run transfers also. So this tool basically comes with your predefined transfer rule capabilities. You can define various different kind of start month, merit month, employee type, FT, what skill set, what kind of bonus, recommended merit, overhead merit details. You can set it up. You can run various transfers also. So for example, if this is the transfer that is pending, I need to do the transfer, I can go ahead in the rule and rule out accordingly to do the transfer of the employee. So if I move to the right, and here I can run different transfers out accordingly, review it out. I can go for other expenses where I can add additional expenses for hiring a new employee, for example training, recruitment, and again this is customizable. This is one view of the form. There is a view by different employees by different months for an account. You can look at your strategic workforce, where you can see the different attrition rates that are available, how it drives out and all. You can run various demographics on the system, where you can, if you are collecting this information out of your HR module, so basically you can see the gender, you can see age band, skill sets, highest education, you can have expense overview, the amount spent by different areas. You can do it. You can do an analysis, the pre-built analysis from the system, or you can run various out-of-box report also which are available. So that's the kind of capability that you get with this out-of-box module. Now This all thing is totally customizable again, and you can build additional models on top of it. So just to give a little idea about your strategic modeling, I have model view, consultation view, and templates available, and these are some of the custom models that I can build on top of it to help that out. Now moving back to this. So
Yeah, thanks, Sriram, for a comprehensive demo. Before we go into some of the more detailed benefits, we're going to ask another few poll questions that will pop up on your screen. Good news, looks like most of you, 50% of you, will be looking to implement something similar or EPBCS less than 6 months from now. So if you are answering these poll questions, we will be in touch with you following the webinar. And one more poll question. Great, Sriram, you did a good job. Everyone's feeling like they would benefit from EPBCS. And of course, if you do have any questions, we will be having a live Q&A in about 5 minutes from now. Back to you, Sriram.
thank you, Nina. So now let's look what are the key advantages or benefits you get after implementing EPBCS. The first advantage is quick win. Basically, it's plug and play product. So it's pre-developed, out of box, business owns it, there is no IT requirement, you just plug it and get it going. It has been developed by Oracle's best of the best mind, which basically considered all different scenarios and they have come up with this design. So it's simple to migrate, no infrastructure involvement, all the power of planning, no more upgrades, the cloud is future that is available. What are some of the key benefits our most of the clients have achieved out of it? The first main is they shifted out of Excel, reduced errors, aligned out their business process. They don't need any more managed services. They shift from Excel to FR Studio, have out-of-box reports, dashboards, as well as they are capable of creating their own FR reports in your FR Web Studio. And this is some of the benefits that people have got. Your traditional approach is basically either you are on Excel or some other product. So reporting used to take hours, now it's less than 30 minutes. Budget calcs 5 weeks compared to 30 minutes. Versioning, multiple spreadsheets you handle over here, click of a button. Integration within seconds. It's pre-defined mapping ETL tool available with the system. Financial reports, that PDF, board book reports that you generate used to take number of days. Over here it's just minutes, you run it. Forecast preparation, earlier it was not available in Excel. Basically you have to do the entire process again and again. Over here it's driver based, you automatically set it up, or a trend based, you set it up and it goes on. Budget aggregations, I have seen clients taking 3 days to 4 days just to consolidate all the different Excel sheets that they have, which used to take weeks to complete. Now it's just minutes to aggregate all the departments and legal entities in a single shot. Now we are going to look at the conclusions and Q&A. So Q&A basically, if, I will let the floor open for questions.
Thanks, Sriram. So as you can see, we do have our 50% off our health check offer now on the screen. Once again, this is an offer exclusive only to our webinar attendees. So if you would like to claim this discounted health check, email us at marketing@jadeglobal.com and we'll be in touch with you for the assessment. Okay, we have one question that has come in already, and that is, how long does it take to do a system implementation?
It depends on the complexity of the FP&A process. Mostly, as it is a out of box plug and play, it's kind of 8 to 12 weeks implementation. With all the modules, you just plug it and it goes on. But now it depends how your business is different compared to the pre-built module. Because mostly I have seen it's 8 to 12 weeks kind of implementation.
And if you're wondering how to ask a question, there's a chat box at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You can simply type a question in and we'll see there. Okay, we have a question regarding cost. How much does it cost to implement EPBCS?
We have different packages available that we have created for EPBCS. So if you want to just go let's say plain vanilla approach, so it's around 48K for each module. You just plug it and we upload the dimensions and all, and it's ready. But depending on the customization that is required, we have different packages, and if more information is needed, we can basically share that out accordingly.
Great. And once again, I do want to remind you this offer for a 50% off health check, a complete systems assessment, is available just exclusively to you, everyone on this webinar. We'll take a few more minutes for some more questions. This question may have already been addressed to some extent, but we're asking, how customizable is EPBCS out of the box?
That's a great question, and it depends. See, each module has capability of doing certain business tasks that has been defined. So we have to basically understand your business and then put that business in this particular model. This model basically comes with 3 additional custom dimensions that can be added, but the predefined 10 dimensions are there, and we have to put your business accordingly in that. We have past clients where they needed more than 3 custom dimensions, and we had to come up with ways where we either have to merge dimensions together to handle that out. So I wouldn't say it's a kind of a rigid product as such, but it has some limited customizable capabilities compared to its precedent PBCS.